Hi there, thanks for joining me again today. We are looking at a 2017 Epiphone RD Lee Malia Artisan Custom. We're going to be setting it up, we're going to be doing a few bits and bobs. Ricky, run the montage. So the only thing we've identified today as an issue is the output jack's cutting in and out. It keeps coming loose. He says he's tightening it, but it just kind of keeps working itself free. So we're going to put a really high quality pure tone output jack on to replace that. Frets are in pretty good nick, but the fretboard is in horrendous condition. So we're going to be cleaning this back and cleaning it all down and getting all this corrosion and get those frets nice and buffed up. But other than that, everything's kind of playing okay. This is a really fucking cool guitar. I don't know if you've ever played these before. This is the third in the series. So Lee brought out the Les Paul first, then he brought out the Explorer, and then this one. They've kind of got all the same color schemes, similar electronics. We've got a P90 in the neck with a dummy coil as well, which acts as a noise interference kind of quietener. I mean, it just sort of creates the illusion of a humbucker, so you don't get that sort of really nasty single coil, which is a really cool feature. This is a custom wound Lee Malia humbucker as well. I believe this is based similar on his bare knuckle war pig that he used to use. Similar sort of voicing with some tweaks and stuff like that. So really, you can get some really nice sounds out of this guitar. Standard sort of Gibson setup, 2 volumes, 2 tones. These are a little bit loosey-goosey as well, so we're going to be tightening them up and cleaning them up nicely. So truss rod wise, everything's looking quite straight. I've not done the pre-set up intonation that I usually do because we are actually going to be changing the gauges of the strings. So he's tuning to drop B and he's wanting to go for some big boy strings. So he wanted to initially put a 74 on the bottom with a set of 12s. I've recommended that we go for this 8-string skinny top heavy bottom because you basically get all the gauges that you need but in one pack. So it just makes it really easy for ordering strings. I believe these are about 15 quid for a set. If you start ordering singles and stuff like that, A, it costs loads of money. B, it takes a while to sort of get them as well. You've got to order them from custom websites and stuff like that. These are something that you can pick up in your local hardware, you know, your local music shop. We're going to be putting these on. We're going to be going up to 80 gauge, which is the string that I believe Lee uses for his drop A tunings. So we're going to be basically replicating Lee's string set on this as well. So we're doing 80, 46, 34, 24, 16 and 11. We're going to be throwing away the 9 and the 64. When I say throw away, I mean put them in the drawer for another time. So truss rod wise, we're not really going to start messing with that yet until we've got the tension on. So what I mean by the pre-set up intonation, I always, in all my videos, I like to check the intonation before I take the strings off. However, if you're going to be changing the gauge of the strings, there's no point in doing that because you're going to be adjusting the intonation anyway. So a little bit of filing is going to be involved. We're just going to be filing down the saddle and the nut just to accommodate that thicker 80 gauge string. And then we're just going to work from top to bottom as we always do. So starting at the headstock, off we go. One little detail I want to pick up on as well is how cool these inlays are. So this guitar, I believe, was based on a 1970s, sort of late 1970s Gibson Artisan series. It made some absolutely beautiful Les Pauls in that era. So you can get the kind of the standard Les Paul, there's a Les Paul Custom, and there's a 2550. These, it all comes with these kind of like florally inlays. But the really cool thing about this guitar, I saw Lee talking about in his That Pedal Show episode, is that they actually got the original guy who did the drawings in the 70s to come back and do them for this. So it's a really cool guitar, really cool shape. Like I say, if this doesn't tickle your fancy, they do a Les Paul version and there's a Explorer version as well. They are limited edition, but they are still available online, talking anywhere sort of between 800 to 1,000 depending on the condition, which I admit is a lot of money for an Epiphone. However, when you pick it up, it doesn't feel like an Epiphone. It feels like a really high quality guitar. So yeah, so let's get into it. So we're going to start with the machine heads. I'm just kind of already noticing that these are kind of really loose, so we'll get the strings off. And I've just remembered I forgot to put my gloves on, so let's put some gloves on. Cool thing about the hardware on these as well is they've got these nice little clips. I don't know if you can see them. Can we get a good zoom in on that? There you go. That's a bit of a better view, isn't it? You see these little clips that are inside the tailpiece just there? It's focusing on my face rather than the clip. but you can kind of see them in there. And what they do is when you push it into your tailpiece holes, tailpiece posts, they click in. So when you sort of put them in there, if you were to turn the sort of guitar upside down and moving it around, it's going to stay in position. So for now, I'm just going to take that off because we're going to need to clean that down later. We'll take this Tune-O-Matic off as well. Nice little Epiphone detailing underneath there as well. And we'll just tape off those posts just to stop them from moving around anywhere. So like we do on all the guitars, we're just going to give it a nice clean down, just the initial clean. I like to sort of work from as clean a point as possible because I do like things clean. But let's just quickly talk about tools as well. So we've got a few nut drivers here in different sizes for the machine heads, for the pots, and for the output jack. So we've got them there. I'm going to move everything off the table. We've got this really cool little Music Nomad truss rod kit that I just got recently. I've got all the Stu-Mac ones as well, but they don't always do all the sizes. So this is a really cool little product. I'm not endorsed by them. I paid full price for it, but yeah, it's really cool. It's just got every truss rod kit, every truss rod size that you would ever need. I think everyone. Probably everyone. We've got some nut files here, which we're going to be using for the nut and for the bridge saddles, just to accommodate that wider spacing. We've got my little flat blade here. I don't think we're going to need this actually because we're going to be using the Music Nomad fret shield. They actually make a perfect 24/7/5. Can you see that? With the E there, the E stands for Epiphone. My lovely Waverley string winder, some snips. We've got a flat head and Phillips head in a couple of different sizes. We've got our new output jack. He's also lost his tone knob as well, so I digged in my little cave of parts and I found one that's virtually identical. It's got that sort of gold tinge to it. So we're going to replace him with that as well. So first we're going to do, like I say, it's just going to give it a nice bit of a clean up. Nice bit of a clean. It's nice getting clean. That should come off quite nicely, that. So as you're cleaning up the machine heads, just have a feel on these and see, you know, and basically you want that kind of sweet spot. You don't want them too hard, so you're having to absolutely crank them, but you don't want them too loose either, because, you know, this is all about tuning stability. Pretty much everything I do in terms of like how I put the strings on, tightening things, loosening things or whatever, it's all to make that sweet spot so that the string stays in tune and in as many environments as possible. Most importantly, the live environment. Obviously you want your guitar to stay in tune wherever possible. So most of the things, you know, that I talk about, that I recommend people do, it's all about keeping the guitar in tune, keeping that tension in that absolutely sweet spot where everything's sort of playing nicely. We've got no nasty rattlings or buzzings or anything like that. And that's it really. So, you know, it's the aim of the game, innit? A guitar that's in tune is a happy guitar. Yeah, that classic saying that no one's ever said. The other thing about this guitar as well, it's fucking massive. It's a right fucking block of wood, tell thee. Sorry for the poor language there, potty mouth. But yeah, it's a really solid bit of guitar. It's weighted really well as well. So by that I mean, like, when you put the guitar on, it's not sort of tipping this way, it's not tipping that way. It just kind of sits on you really nicely. I'm not trying to suck the guitar off, like, but it's just a really nice bit of kit. These little gold detailings are on the edge of the pickups, the gold pole pieces in the middle. It really is classy. It's a classy guitar. And you can get those, you know, heavy metal tones if you want them. But it's not a metal guitar, do you know what I mean? I guess Bring Me are probably more of a rock band these days than a metal band. But back when I was working for them, when I started, it was just straight metal, baby. And, you know, absolutely love the direction they've gone and the new stuff that they've got going on. But this guitar almost kind of represents Bring Me the Horizon's music, in the sense that, you know, it'll do the metal stuff if you want to do that, if you want to shred your tits off, but it'll also do some nice classic vibes, you know what I mean? Play a bit of Pink Floyd on there, a bit of Wishbone Ash. It'll pretty much do anything you want it to. This fretboard's absolutely disgusting. So, you know, if you can have a cheese sandwich and a bag of Quavers, before you play your guitar, just wash your bloody hands. Do you know what I mean? Let's start by tightening up the nuts here. These are typically 10mm in size. I don't know what that is in imperial, but less than 10. Now, when you're tightening up these, as always, you're not going hell for leather. You're not over tightening them. You just basically just finger tighten with just a little bit extra, just to stop them from wiggling around. Now, this is particularly important on your thicker strings. The thicker the string, the more movement, the more tension, the more it's going to be pulling around on there. So we'll just line these up then. So we've got the holes pointing in a straight line, ready for that string to go nice and easy into. Let's tighten these up. So just on the end of these, you can see that. I don't know if you can see, it's kind of wiggling around. And if that wiggles around too much, it could just fall off, and then you've absolutely fucked it, haven't you? So let's just tighten this up. Again, we're not over tightening, we're not under tightening. We're just looking for that Goldilocks zone of just right. It wants to feel nice and firm, but not too firm. By the way, this list that I'm using, these inspection sheets, you can download these off my website for free, drguitars.co.uk. You can also book in on there as well. So if you enjoy what I'm doing and you think you could benefit from having a guitar setup, you can now book directly with me on my website. So we're just going to tick that. We haven't got a string tree on here, so we're just going to put not applicable, and we're going to move on to the nut. So at this point, I'm going to get our 80 gauge string out just so we can see what we're working with. We'll get our 80 out and we'll just kind of see where we're at and have a look in that slot. So I'm just going to pull that through just to give us a little eyeball of where we need to be. It's obviously still quite far off there. I think he was using a 70 before, so not a massive difference, to be honest. Once you've gone up to 70, then going from 70 to 80 is not a big deal really. So I've not got an 80, so we're going to go for 90, a little bit wider than we need, but on a thicker string it's not an issue. And you can just look, as you're looking in there, you just want this saddle to sit nice and even on the bottom. Just going to go in one way. You don't want to be using it like a saw, just going in one direction, just like that. And you'll see as you get where you need to be, the residue underneath it will start to disappear. So we're just going to pop our string, and that is sitting in there absolutely beautifully now. Now I'm going to do the saddle, the bridge saddle violin, once we've got all the strings on. I prefer to do that when everything's kind of in situ. Otherwise, you're getting your tailpiece and you're kind of wobbling around in your hand, or you put it in a vise or whatever. Let's just do that when it's in position. We're happy with that, but we're just going to now smooth out these saddles a little bit with my 2500 grit. And this is just going to give it a nice clean finish in there. Get rid of any rough edges that we don't like. Let's get a bit of our nut sauce. Love a bit of sauce on me nuts. Then we're just going to fill up that slot, and we're going to use our little dabber just to distribute that lubricant into the slots. Beautiful. Onto some fret polishing, shall we? Just make sure this does line up and it is the correct size. These are the Music Nomad fret shields. Can't recommend them highly enough, especially if you're doing this on the regular. Save you a lot of time. And time is money, as they say. So just going to tape underneath that just to stop anything from getting scratched. And we're just going to tape over the top of it to stop it from moving anywhere. Bit of that, bit of that. Beautiful. Just a little, gonna do quite a good helping of this actually on here. You don't want too much because you're going to end up having to clean it off, but you just want a nice healthy helping. Basically, the nastier the frets, the worse condition they're in, the more sort of compound you're going to need. I just use this Peak stuff, P-E-E-K, K. Make sure you've got glasses on when you're doing this, safety first and all that. You do get quite a lot of compounds sort of flying off and around, and just protect the areas as well. So while I've got my Dremel wheel running, make sure we're going to cover up all these areas. Just cover over the top of there and over the top of that. Very nice. It's good, it's nice. Off we go. Look how shiny these frets are now. You can even tell with that camera, even from that distance, how much cleaner these are now. And you're really going to feel the difference when you play it. It's going to feel smoother. It's going to be easier to bend, easier to shred. Let's get a bit of oil on here. Now we're just going to check that these posts are solid and in position, which they are. It's so good, it's so nice. So we'll clean up the Tune-O-Matic now and the stop tailpiece. Nice clean up on that. While we've got this off as well, we'll just have a little feel of these screws, make sure that the saddles are moving back and forward nice and easily, which they do seem to be. And make sure when you put your Tune-O-Matic bridge back on that you're putting it on the correct way around. So in this case it's the screws facing the nut, which is where we want to be. Look how much cleaner that is now, absolutely beautiful. You'll notice with gold hardware as well that this finish over time will start to fade, which personally I think looks really cool. Looks like you've played it, looks like it's worn in. So let's click them into there. Nice and wedged in tight there. So we're just going to give the lemon oil a few more minutes just to settle in into all those cracks and crevices. You must keep your work area clean. If you want to do a clean job, you've got to keep it clean, baby. We'll pop our strings into position. Try your hardest not to get any oils or compound or anything like that on the actual strings themselves, because you're only going to have to end up wiping it off and it's just a ball ache, innit? So we'll get the strings on. So what we're doing, 80 for the B. We're doing a 46 for the F sharp, so it's almost double the thickness on the bottom. But 80 is basically a bass string, isn't it? It's basically a bass string. So octave B is going to be a 34. We've got a wound 24. Controversial. Don't knock it till you've tried it. It is for some, not for others. I quite like it personally. 24 wound on the E, 16 for the G sharp, and an 11 for the C sharp. So this is C sharp standard drop B for them low girthy tones, that is. Nice wipe off with this. Wipe out. Wipe off. Wax on. Wax off. Catch fly with chopstick. Achieve many things. Give it a wipe under there. Look how nourished that fretboard is. We're going to tune it up to pitch Let's just do it all. We'll do all the intonating and stuff like that, and then we'll do the electronics after. Aha! Here's something I forgot. I think we might have to drill this machine head out. So before we do that, let's tape everything off. So with it being an 80 gauge string, it's quite thick. Thicker than certainly this machine head is used to having on it. So what it's going to mean is we're just going to need to drill the post out a little bit, which is not a problem. Just make sure when you're doing this, you're doing it with a really good quality bit. Don't use a cheap old shite one. We just need to widen the diameter of the inside of there. So I think 2 mil is going to be a little bit too small. 2 mil is actually all right. That's a 2, that's a 1.5. 1.5 is good. So I'm going to use a 2 mil. And the only thing to make sure that you really need to make sure with this is A, that the tip is really sharp. So it's a fresh bit. Most important thing is to make sure you're going in straight. Not cockeyed, not on the piss. Nice and straight. So you're just going to line up. Get your first bit. That feels good already. And then we're just going to test and see if the string passes through. I suspect we might have to go another one up, but let's have a look. Yeah, not quite big enough, so we're just going to step up in increments. So we'll go to 2.5 mil now. Gonna get your string, pop him through, make sure it's going all the way through, and we're done, right? That's all we need to do. Nope, we need to do a bit of sanding, darling. Now, because we've drilled through there, we've got some rough edges that we need to get rid of. So what I like to do is just cut a really thin bit of sandpaper, just enough to go through the slot, but you want it quite long. You're going to bend it in the middle. So with this to start with, I'm using a 400 grit. And you're going all the way around here, both sides, and just a bit of to-ing and fro-ing. Very nice. So we're just getting all those rough edges off and making it nice and smooth. And obviously the main reason we're doing this is so that when you pop your string through there, it's not got rough edges and it's just not going to snap. So that's done, job is done. Look at that. So just a quick visual inspection through there as well, just making sure we've not missed anything, we've not got any nasty sort of sharp burrs sticking out, but that's looking really good. So that's how easy it is. We started with a 2 mil and we sized up to 2.5 and job was a good one. Now you've got to be careful with this, and it looks a bit clumsy to be honest with the thicker strings, but trust me, this is the way to do it. This is how to keep it in tune. I did this for years and years and years with Lee's guitars. They always stayed in tune, apart from the odd gig. Sorry about that, Lee. When doth beers are flowing, sometimes doth tuning suffers. But don't do any of that anymore. Gigs, that is. Still drink. So, strings in position, looking good. However, we just need to file down this slot here. So, just take your string off to one side. We're not doing a huge amount here. All we're doing really is just stopping that string. If you're playing really, really hard with your pick, depending on what picks you use and how hard you play. So when you're playing down really hard, you need to make sure that this string isn't going to pop out and move around. So it's really important to file this just to make sure it's not going to go anywhere. I'm doing this with 90 again because I've got not got an 80, but with the thicker strings you can go a little bit heavier. Single direction, and that's it. That's all you need to do. Just a little bit there. The other reason you need to do that as well is these Tune-O-Matic bridges come set with a set radius on it. In this case, it's a 12-inch. It's got a set radius on it. If you put a really thick string on, it's going to lift it up. So you need to make sure that it's sitting in the saddle so it's not wiggling around anywhere. So tune it back up to pitch so you can hear it. You can already see that's quite flat, so I'm just going to, we're not doing the intonation yet, I'm just getting everything in a ballpark. I'm going to send that as far back as we possibly can. F sharp. Before we move on to doing intonation and stuff, we're just going to repair this output jack and get that playing. But before we do that, we're just going to remove all the knobs, tighten them up a little, and then we'll bang a new output jack on, shall we? Just going to turn on our soldering iron. If you've watched my videos before, I always talk about the importance of a good quality soldering iron. You're not going to do nice solder joints with a knackered old soldering iron, so make sure you invest in a good one. I like to just loosen these off in position. You can see that's all loosey-goosey there. So let's pull this out then, see what we're working with. That feels very tight. So yeah, this is just a standard Epiphone one, as I said. I'm going to take that off. Going to desolder these. Wiring actually looks in really good nick, so I'm just going to leave the wires as they are. Try not to burn yourself when you're doing this. What I like to do is mount these onto the plate and get them ready. But in this case, because there's not a huge amount of wiggle room, we'll just leave it there. Now, here's a little top tip for you. Plug the jack into the jack, you've just made yourself a little vise. So yeah, don't need fancy clamps and all that stuff. If you got a jack, just bang it in it. Nice bit of clean solder. Nice bit of clean solder. And there, that should be all we need solder wise. And then you can leave this jack on it and use it as a little vise. Quite cool, right? Okay, so before we tighten anything up, I'm going to pop a little bit of thread lock on, just a little tiny blob on there. Okay, so we're just going to pull it out into position, get it really nice and tight, and that thread lock stuff is just going to stop that nut, sorry, from ever coming loose again. And that's it, jack's on. Just a quick test. Before we put everything back together, we are going to need to clean the pots, and to do that we need to get to the pots. So we're just going to take off these screws on the back plate. Having a right laugh, aren't we, doing this and that? Having a right bloody laugh. Contact cleaner. Right in there. You want to do this right into the center of the pots, just behind where that tag is. Now, while we've got the guitar flipped over like this, we'll just take it as an opportunity to clean some stuff. Very nice. So let's flip her over. Now we've sprayed contact cleaner into these, so I'm just going to pop the knobs back on. And your two tones, make sure they're all turned up to 10. And line them up so they're all facing each other the same way. Lovely and tight. Just give them a really good fettling round. So, output jack's done, pots are nice and clean. So all we've got to do now is get the action and the intonation all set. Once we've done that, bit of a clean up, bit of a play, and we'll be happy days. So get into shredding position. We're going to need our flathead, and then as we do this, I'm just going to check the neck. Make sure the neck is nice and straight, which it's not. Obviously, we have put a colossally thick string on the bottom there, and what that's doing is it's going to pull the headstock. You've got more tension here, and it's going to pull the headstock this way. So what the truss rod does is pull it back that way. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to put some tension in this. We're going to tighten the truss rod. Now, you always want to do this in an ideal situation with the strings not only on, but it's tuned up. So, what size we got there? Looks fairly small. Epiphone size. See what this one's saying. Beautiful. So you're going to always loosen first before you tighten. And then I like to just do this as I'm actually looking at the neck. Look down the fretboard. Okay. Beautiful. So that neck is lovely and straight now. Now, it's personal preference. You might prefer to have a little bit of relief in the neck. It's, you know, whatever you prefer. I like to have it basically straight edge straight, and then just back it off a tiny little bit. Just a fraction of relief in the middle of there. You're never going to get it absolutely perfectly straight. You'll also find as well that if you straighten the truss rod, which 9 out of 10 guitars that come in here, they've got issues with the neck. You're going to be tightening it rather than loosening it, i.e. it's got a bow in the neck. So your string is here, and that's your neck, and you've got a bit of a bow in it like that. Your string's sitting on top of here, like that. And by tightening it, what you're doing is just pulling the wood up closer. Now, what that does, effectively, is lower the action, because you've straightened the wood, i.e. you've brought the wood up closer to the string. So you've shortened the gap between the bottom of the string and the top of the fret is gone like that. So, most important thing to do is get it into playing position. So that can come down just a touch. Oof, in my belly going then. I think it's lunchtime. I've recently lost just over a stone in weight, so I'm feeling very good. Pleased with myself at the moment. I've just remembered we've not cleaned the switch as well, so we'll come back to that. That's why it's really good to have that form, because it reminds you. Fun fact as well, drop B is also the Limp Bizkit tuning. For example, notice as well that bridge pickup is considerably louder than the neck pickup. Now it will be because it's higher power, but I am just going to lower it down a little bit. It's a little bit too close to the strings for my liking. So if you're doing like palm muting and stuff like that, and then I'm just going to raise the neck slightly just to even that out. And then you're just going to listen. This is pickup normalizing, by the way. So bridge, neck. Top string. So you want that full bend without it fretting out. Really, really happy with that. So the action's absolutely sweet. Let's sort the intonation out. If it's sharp, we want to go that way. If it's flat, we want to go that way. Easy, mate. Looks pretty good. F sharp. A little bit flat. If it's flat, we're going to go that way. Easy, mate. A little bit flat. A little bit flat. A little bit sharp, so we're going to go this way, away from the nut. Wicked. So, all sounding nice, playing beautifully, neck's all in nice in position. Really happy with that. So all we got to do now is stretch these strings, give it a final polish, and Bob's your auntie. String stretching, very important. Tempting not to do it, but you must. If you want your strings to stay in tune, you need to stretch them. End of story. So, push pull. Oh yeah, we forgot one thing, didn't we? You could always forget things. Bit of switch cleaner in the switch. Get it right down in there. You're not going to be spraying on the outside. Spray right into the shaft. And then just get it all. A good old fettling. Bit more for good measure. And we're done. So this has been the magnificent 2017 Lee Malia Epiphone RD Artisan Custom. It's a mouthful, but it's a great guitar. If you've enjoyed it, please like and subscribe, baby. More vids coming soon. Thank you very much. Bye.